And let's get rolling. Welcome everyone to the Ocelot Open House. This is unlike any open house that we've hosted before. And it's good to see that most of our teachers are literally in their homes. It's definitely a once in a lifetime for me so far, hopefully a once in a lifetime event to do Zoom open houses. And I'm really looking forward to when we can open our doors physically to our families and invite everyone in. My name is Jeremy Voss, principal of Escalante Middle School. And just quickly, any staff who are in the room, I'm going to go ahead and invite you to unmute your phones. I'll just try to call out your name so you can just do a quick introduction with your name, and then I'll get back to, just kind of my little preamble to this meeting. But let's start with Ms. Frederick. Ms. Frederick, could you just quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Marcy Frederick, and I teach language arts for the Ocelots.
Ms. Von Olen?
There, I'm Beth Von Olen, and I'm the math teacher.
Mr. Fitzpatrick?
Hi, I'm Strider Fitzpatrick, and I'm the social studies teacher.
Ms. Hilmer?
Hello, good evening, everyone. I am Ashley Hilmer, and I teach science on the Ocelot team.
And Ms. Black?
I'm Evelyn Black. I'm the noisemaker in the building right now, music teacher / percussionist.
Ms. Blem?
Hi, I'm Carolyn Blem, and I'm the 6th grade resource teacher.
And Mr. Lennox, how's your audio coming? 1 minute. All right, just butt in when you feel like you want to give it a shot. All right. So for our agenda tonight, what we're going to be doing is passing the mic over to our teachers, and our teachers are going to be just giving some short summaries of their classrooms, what their classroom environments are looking like this year, current learning targets that they're working on, any major assessments that are coming up, and just a little insight and basically a way so that our families can be able to associate a face with their name. And so that's one of our main purposes for tonight. In addition, we're going to be talking with one of our exploratory teachers. Ms. Black is going to be able to talk about what music's going to look like this year. And, so really the overall purpose is just kind of a general, this is how things are going at Escalante right now in classrooms. This is what we're up to. This is what we're working on, so that hopefully you're able to have a little more background knowledge about school this year and to be able to identify your teachers. We're realizing that some of you maybe only met some of your teachers on orientation and may not have met all of your child's teachers. So we want to make sure that that's accomplished tonight. In addition, after the teachers do their summaries, we're going to do a little question and answer session. And so I'll be hanging out, teachers will be hanging out. And so if there's anything you're wondering about or questions about, we'll be staying around and fielding those questions. Those questions we're hoping to keep pretty, broad about the general nature of school at Escalante, questions that would benefit other folks. If you have anything really individualized to your child's particular experience, I really encourage you to email teachers and just contact us directly if there's something that we would need to troubleshoot or work through or talk about with something that would be very specific to your child. At Escalante, many of you know this, some of you don't, but we're associated with the network of schools called Expeditionary Learning Schools, or EL Education. What that means is that we get some extra professional development and are part of a greater network of schools across the country that really have a shared vision. And that vision is to really do work worth doing, meaningful work. We talk a lot about work in 3 areas to make sure that it's complex and definitely at or above standard. We want to make sure that our work shows, we talk a lot about craftsmanship, and so we believe a lot in revision and students doing high quality work. And we talk a lot about authenticity. And so what that leads to is a lot more project-based works. What you don't see a lot of in our school is really a lot of textbooks. You'll see some tests and traditional tests, but you'll often also see something that has, maybe mirrors what work looks more like in the real world, more collaborative, more experiential, and so that's what we're after with the vision of our school. And one of the great advantages is I'm part of a network of principals across Colorado and Utah and did a meeting, and we really had an opportunity to talk about how are we accomplishing this vision, how are schools doing working on this. And it's not just within our community, but being part of a network where I get a problem solve and really work through things with, a whole network of schools that are really after the same vision. So it's, one of the things that I think is really special and unique about our school. I know that you aren't here for me, and so I'm going to go ahead and pass the mic over so you can hear more about, the classes that your teachers are sitting in regularly. I'm going to go ahead and monitor the chat box, and so if any of you has a question while the teacher is talking, I'll go ahead and keep an eye on that chat box, and when I get to a good place, I'll interject your question in there, and so feel free to use the chat box if there's anything that you're wondering about, and I'll keep an eye on it. Ms. Frederick, you comfortable kicking us off?
Actually, I think Miss Blem might also try to join the Falcon open house conferences. So if she could go first and introduce herself, and then she can go to her other meeting, that would be great.
Okay, sounds good. And we'll just go with the popcorn protocol. So Ms. Blem, as soon as you're finished, just pick another Escalante staff member and put them on the spot. Sound good?
Sounds good. So I'm Carolyn Blem. I'm the 6th grade resource teacher. I work with both the Ocelots and the Falcons. I generally push into language arts and math class to provide accommodations and supports and modifications for our students. So I call myself a resource for all students because I help everybody. And so yeah. Yeah, that's it pretty much. So I'll popcorn on over to Miss Von Olin.
Thank you, Miss Blem. Hi, everybody. Thanks for coming. Glad to see you. I'm Miss Von Olin. I'm Beth Von Olin, and I am the Ocelot math teacher. And I really have enjoyed so far getting to know your kids. It's a super fun group of kids. And it's such a special year with this, what we're going through. Makes them even more special. Couple things about math. 6th grade math class really is building on our foundational math skills and number sense, especially those like elementary multiplication and division skills. In my class, I have a strong emphasis on students making sense of a problem. They're thinking about it, their process. I'm not usually interested so much just in the answer. I really want to know like how and why. Our problem solving is literacy based, so we do a lot of reading problems, annotating, discussing. We write about math, trying to make sense of our problems. So being aware of what we're finding, that metacognition is something that I really try to focus on for the students. So it really helps them make some good connections. Our 6th grade math topics, our big topics are all operations with whole numbers and fractions and decimals. Our new major topics are ratios and proportional reasoning and algebra, expressions and equations and inequalities. We've already covered our basic old school multiplication and division standard algorithm, which the kids did pretty well with. Some are still kind of struggling. So that's something that you can help. It's not new math or anything crazy like that. It's just old school math. Right now we're in the middle of our ratio unit. So we're working with ratios, setting up proportions, really focusing on like labeling our work and like what are we finding, unit rates. Some things I really encourage you guys is to help your students at home by modeling being a positive math model. So I don't want to hear them say that, well, my mom said I'm not good at math. It's not genetic. It's about effort and mindset. If you can help them practice their math facts in the car, incorporate math in the real world, anytime you have a chance, just help your students see that math is relevant and it's everywhere. And yeah, that's it.
I think I'm next, right? Okay. Hello, everyone. Again, I'm Ashley Hilmer, and I teach science. And sixth grade science is a mixture of physical, earth, and life sciences. And right now, we're deep into the work of understanding mass, volume, weight, and density. And we are working towards two long-term summative demonstrations of learning. The first one is a Cartesian diver, and the second one, which I'm not sure if we're going to pull off or not, depending on COVID and where we are with that, but hot air balloons. So I thought one way to just give you a little bit of an idea of what we're going to be up to this year is just to share with you some of the long-term targets. So the first one that we're deep into right now, I can explain the relationships among mass, weight, volume, and density. And also pertaining to that is I can use the particulate model to describe the characteristics and changes of solid, liquid, and gas states. And also I can explain the relationship between atoms, elements, molecules, and compounds. And so those are the physical science standards that we'll be working towards at the beginning of the year, probably for the first half of the year. And then we'll jump into some of the earth standards, and those would be, I can explain how water in the Colorado River watershed is distributed and circulated. I can describe how constructive and destructive forces have shaped Earth's surface and are shaping. And I can evaluate different types of renewable and non-renewable energy. And then in the spring, we'll get into our life science, which is one of my favorites. And those would include, I can predict how changes in environmental conditions affect the survival of organisms, populations, and species. And I can describe the flow of energy and the cycling of matter in an ecosystem. So that's what we're up to. I'm pretty lucky to teach science. Thanks, everyone.
Okay, I guess I'm up next. I'm Marcy Frederick, and I teach English language arts. And I so have enjoyed getting to know your kids, and it's really nice to actually see some of you, or not see you, but have you come and join us. We are actually starting out with a big, question about a guiding question about how we become powerful, independent readers, writers, and thinkers. So our first case study has been with personal narrative. And we are really focusing on creating a high quality personal narrative using the writing cycle. So we have really immersed ourselves with reading, learning about what that genre includes, looking at different authors and writers for that. And then we've gone through the process of collecting and planning and drafting and editing. And we're now basically almost done with a publishable piece. We are starting tomorrow to read that aloud and do a podcast, and we're going to publish that on Padlet and share it with different crews and also with families. So you'll be able to enjoy this and be able to comment and celebrate with this whole process. After that's finished, we're actually starting a new case study next week where we're really going to focus on reading comprehension and elements of literature. Especially focusing on setting, character, and point of view. For setting, our big guiding question is going to be how setting impacts and influences characters, both in fiction and nonfiction, which will tie to some of the work that they're going to do in social studies. We're also going to look at character development and how characters, one's race, gender, age, etc., all those physical as well as their personal qualities help shape and dictate who they become. And then we'll also be looking at, through a novel study, point of view and perspective, and how and just examining perspectives of different characters, both in fiction and nonfiction, and evaluating how setting, character, and point of view can really empower movements of social change, which will actually really lead nicely into social studies, where we'll be able to look at perspectives and support informational text, both reading and writing that when they do their History Day project. Towards the end of the year, we're going to end with some argumentative writing, where we will do a lot of reading and writing of argumentative text, and hopefully tie that to impacting change within our community. And then hopefully we'll have time to end with some, depending on COVID and everything, end with some poetry and another novel study through literature circles. Basically, throughout the whole year, we'll be looking at grammar and why grammar matters and why it's important, and also looking at vocabulary instruction and morphology so that we can build our vocabulary. As far as being successful in language arts, very rarely do I assign homework, but I would love to encourage kids to read at home, whether that's nonfiction text or any sort of text. If they can be reading at home, that will really support English language arts. And yeah, I'm just really excited about this year and look forward to working with your kids.
Hi, I'm Strider Fitzpatrick. I teach social studies, and one of the things I really enjoy about social studies and listening to everybody talk about their elements or their disciplines that they teach is that there's so much crossover in social studies. So we get to do math and science and language arts in there. So there's all these overlaps that we get to do and I kind of see it as trying to tie everything together. So in social studies for 6th grade, we study the Western Hemisphere, and we look at 4 disciplines: geography, economics, history, and civics. And so right now we're taking a jump into economics, and we've been, if you're familiar with the show Shark Tank, we've been trying to come up with some kind of product that we could pitch to a panel of investors. And we've been analyzing economic factors that we can make really good decisions for our business, and tying math and reading and writing, looking at a lot of data in there. And so that's been fun. We took a quick break from Shark Tank, and we looked at what does it mean to be an informed voter. So with the election coming up, we looked at 5 of the issues on the Colorado ballot and tried to look at, what is the process that a voter goes through to make an informed decision when they vote, looking at both sides of an issue and trying to figure out really what's the best decision for their community. And then after we get done with Shark Tank, we'll be jumping into looking at historical figures and trying to have a language arts connection where we look at how historical figures, what their setting is, and how has it affected their actions towards trying to affect social change. And then that is a really nice tie-in to History Day, and this year's History Day theme is around communication. And communication it's going to be a difficult topic this year. I'm not gonna lie, it's going to be tricky. But there's the classic Navajo code talkers to how did the civil rights? What were they trying to communicate through their actions? So there's lots of different topics and ways we can tackle that. And then another big project we do towards the end of the year, incorporating a lot of math into it, is creating a personal budget. So the students will research a potential topic or a career that they're interested in, and then they'll figure out what the median salary is or the average salary, the mean in there, this funnel, and try to figure out how can they create a personal budget, anything from housing to food to paying insurance, entertainment, retirement, all those kind of things. And so those are all the things that, those are the big topics that we'll hit. And then we jump in, like current event stuff always comes up. So we're always jumping into little things here and there and learning about fun things. Things that'll help your student be successful in social studies is just being inquisitive, asking questions, really trying to really think about like, how does this apply to their life? And how can these skills that seem kind of isolated, how can we bring those into the broader picture to make them a critical thinker and an active citizen in our world? So want to thank everybody for coming tonight, but that's social studies in a nutshell.
Awesome. Well, I guess it's to me. I'm typically a band and choir director, but this year I've morphed it because we are not allowed to do either of those things in the building. So we are embarking on a percussion unit as if we would be in band. And actually, I just finished one 8-week session with Dominic's group online, and they managed to learn enough rhythms and did enough patterns to get through a whole year of study in 8 weeks. In fact, I handed out Star Wars the last week or so of class, and I never do that until May. And they pulled at least a good chunk of Star Wars off. So I was totally elated with all of the kids' progress. It was like a chaotic nightmare to listen to everybody play at the same time via Zoom, but that's okay. Right now, we are actually in person in class, and I'm loving it. The kids are fabulous. We're having a great time. We've got that percussion ensemble and the discipline down, and they're going for it. So I may run out of music. I may have to find another series of books for them, but that's okay. I'm loving it. I might ask that you, if you have kids coming into my program in the future, you might ask them to get a cheapo pair of earplugs just to cut some of the sound, because we've got a lot of instruments. I've got steel drums, I've got snare drum, I've got bells, the whole 9 yards in my small room. So maybe ear protections would be good. And just listen for some joyful racket around the place.
And so the way our exploratories rotations are working is our 6th graders will get 4 different exploratories 1 quarter at a time. And so at some point they'll all be rotating through the music class. And it's like 6th grade band is always an adventure. 6th grade percussion is a place that, now that it's in our school, I'll probably go into the classroom in about 3 weeks. And so I'll give Evelyn some time to control the racket, and then all of a sudden if something happens and they start making beautiful music. And so our school, just as a plug, has always been known as the music school throughout southwestern Colorado. We have extremely strong programs, and we're working hard where kids will either have orchestra or percussion this year in 6th grade. And one of the things we're really going to have to push to do is to make sure that our 6th graders join band or join choir next year, or when this is all over, because it is like a very signature program of our school that we want to keep really strong. And it's been one of the hardest things for us to let go of. So just expect that big blitz coming at some point with your child. We're going to be singing and playing instruments in band as soon as we are able. A couple other things I just wanted to touch on. We are going to be printing our first quarter grades at the end of these 2-day work days that we have. Teachers can have time to consolidate grades. We've had some technical issues with our new grade book and schedule we need to sort out in the office. And so please be keeping an eye out. I usually send home an email that your child got a paper report card to keep an eye out for it. But you can also look on the portal once they're posted, and you can just see their report card there. It'll be a progress report for the first quarter. And it is also, we're going to be sending home some iReady scores. And so most of you who have been in 9R are probably familiar with 9R, or with how we've adopted iReady and have been looking at those in parent-teacher conferences. One of the things that I noticed in my data analysis is we had the kids do those iReady tests right away because we really wanted to get a sense of, we're used to a summer slide, which is in the summer, on average, like kids who read a lot will go up a little bit in reading. Kids who don't have habits of reading tend to go down what we call the summer slide and regress a little bit. And we also see in math that kids over the summer, forget some of the algorithms and things that Ms. Von Olen was talking about, but then they relearn it really quickly. And so that's why we often have to start with a little review of elementary skills, remind them that they actually know that. And so on these iReady tests, we're not seeing a typical summer slide. For some of our kids who are really engaged in online learning and remote learning, it looks like a typical year. For a lot of our community where remote learning from spring break on was really a struggle, and like I count my family into that boat of that was really hard when we were working and trying to have our kids do school at home. We do see, more of a pronounced, what I would call summer slide or spring break to summer slide in our scores. And so the reason I'm going into this is I just don't want people to look at it and then be really worried, right? Like, oh no, because what we've found is as kids are getting back into the rhythm of class, they're remembering skills that they didn't know that they knew when we hit them with that test right there at the beginning of the year. But it did help us get some really valuable information on what skills do we need to quickly review and how do we need to get things caught up. And so those iReady scores will be coming home with report cards, and we're going to be doing some processing of that with kids as well. The other place, just to be aware, is in-person learning has been a little bit easier on the exchange of work. We assign work, we're used to getting that work back. In the other models, particularly the remote for Ocelots, the back and forth of work has been difficult, and so that may be reflected in some grades. And also in middle school, it's the first time in our district that traditional grades are offered, and so that we'll have A, B, C's, D's, F's. And what we're going to do, with this first quarter is if we do have students who really struggle to get work in, we're going to put the score that their work reflected on the report card, but then in the second quarter, be quick to rescue, to be quick to, okay, we can excuse that work. Let's get worked up, focused on this. Let's get the habits down of how we get work in really quickly, so that, we can have our grades really representative of what kids are knowing and can do. And the main way that we can judge that is by getting our hands on work. And so where that's been a struggle, may be impacting some kids' grades. So keep an eye on those. Feel free to reach out to us if you have questions, and know that in the second quarter, we're going to do everything that we can to really get, both the grade level scores, to rebound on iReady, as well as some work around the student habits that lead to solid grades. The other thing I wanted to talk a little bit about is I was determined not to make tonight about COVID. I do want to offer just a couple things and insights that I've seen. When it comes to model choice, our school community at first came out where we were about 50% of people chose in-person, 25% were choosing blended, 25% choosing remote, like somewhere in there. And we were able to really have a nice balance. The longer that we stayed open and the longer that we haven't had, rolling shutdowns, the more demand there has been for in-person and the less demand for other models. And so every 4 weeks or so, I'm just going to be putting out a question in the community. And I think parents really want to, to be looking at what's happening in the community and have opportunities to make changes. We're going to be trying not to change models at all, except in 4-week increments, because that's when they're through 2 weeks of each cycle with the crew. And we don't want to get in the habit, now that we have our crews pretty solid, after this last first quarter shuffle. It just takes a ton of work, and Mr. Lennox and I, who's in here and permanently muted because his mic isn't working, spent a lot of time really trying to make good decisions when we had to switch kids into crews and how to balance numbers. And there's just so many more layers of complication around scheduling this year that we're trying to keep that to 4 weeks. If we do get to a place where I'm seeing a lot of people are leaving one model to go into another, I'm going to just be really transparent with our numbers and sharing that with the community, because we need to have a certain set of kids in order in a model in order to keep it functioning. Because if we have so many people coming back in, we have to create new sections in schools and reallocate our staffing. And so if you have questions about that, don't hesitate to reach out and call. Right now we're seeing, and have been seeing since the start of school, kind of a steady trickle back into in-person learning, which kind of takes me into my next step of what I want to talk about is our current community rates aren't looking nearly as good as they did in September. And so like late October is looking like our community currently is going through some spikes, and just want to implore our community, those of you who are going to be watching the recording or those of you in the audience, to just really try to make wise decisions over Halloween and as we get into the holiday season, because after every major holiday or summer holiday, you can kind of see nationally that there's a spike that follows. We've been really fortunate and have worked really hard, honestly, to stay open. If you walk around our school, you will see reminders of the 3 W's on every corner of wash your hands, watch your distance, wear your mask. And those are the types of things that if we are going to be doing some Halloween celebrations, if you could just really help us reinforce those messages with kids about watching distance, washing hands frequently, wearing masks when in public. That's really been our key to being able to stay open. So I appreciate any efforts that you can make on that front. My goal was to have this meeting be about 30 minutes of presentation and to leave plenty of time for question and answer, because I'm sure there are things that parents out there are wondering. If you have any particular questions about a content, you can ask that teacher. And so you can ask, like, it'd be good to ask about curriculum, elaboration on an assessment, maybe a major assignment that happened, grading policies, those sorts of things that would really be general. Again, if you have questions that are really about specifics that would be unique to just your child, write down that question you're thinking about now, and then you can email me, jvoss@durangoschools.org. I can get it to the right place, or you can email teachers directly, and they can make sure that we're being responsive to those questions that you have just about your student. So in these Q&As, typically what happens is there's an awkward pause time. Someone breaks the ice and asks a really good question, and then things really get rolling and there's a good conversation. And so I do encourage you, if there is something you're wondering about the 6th grade experience, anything for me on the administrative side, I've definitely been living in schedule and operation world for a while. I can field those questions. We've got great, awesome teachers here that can handle your, any questions about their content. And so feel free to take that risk. You can put it in the chat box if you would like, and I'll be monitoring that. Or you can just unmute, and I encourage you to unmute, introduce yourself, and ask your question.
Hi, Jeremy. I'm going to avoid the awkward pause. My name's Heather. My name's not Noah. I just realized I'm still using the same screen my son uses every day. I just have to tell you that I have been blown away and so impressed with all of the teachers doing the remote, because I know they're not just doing remote, and it's amazing. I wonder, I do worry about, like, as the virus goes up, but that, parents are still sending their kids to school, which is fine. I mean, I'm glad we have the options. I'm hoping that if at some point it does start to tip one way or the other, that there's not enough of us just doing remote, is there going to be a threshold where we're going to have to choose? Do you anticipate or not? I mean, maybe it's too soon to ask. I don't know. But I don't know that any of us knows for sure how long this is going to last. But, it's like we've got health stuff that we have to be careful about. So I have zero interest in bringing him into anybody's building. And he doesn't want to go anywhere. He's rather pleased with this system. I'm sure Ms. Van Allen can attest to that. Yeah.
Great question. And so first I'd like to recognize your affirming praise that I have also been passing on to our teachers about how I hear a lot of gratitude for the hard work that they're doing in both platforms and being willing to go across that. And it is like a lot of work for staff. And so I can't emphasize enough how, like, cross-model teaching is more than just picking up another prep. And so I really appreciate you sharing that gratitude with them. And I think it's great that they hear that. The other second piece to the question is I'm working at, like, we have several students in our school community where they're in a particular place where, just for their health, the remote option is the best option. And so what I'm thinking a lot about is if we get to a place where we really just have a little bit of demand at a particular grade level, what's the program or what's the pivot that I can do and still accommodate to have enough students that come in person. So the way we're structured now is this team has 4 crews. And so 3 of their crews are in person, 1 of their crews are remote. If we end up with a situation where a lot of the remote families choose to come back in person, what will happen in that situation is that we won't be able to socially distance in the 3 in-person crews, and the time that I protected in the day for remote will have to be carved out as an in-person time. And so I want to have a solution. And so I'm talking to some of the other schools that are doing some different models of what will that look like and when would it be, like how much lead time do we need to give families so that they can look at, okay, here's what the school can provide. If we do it at something like semester with that type of change, then there would be other remote options that would be more likely for families to get into than if we just did it randomly, like right after Thanksgiving. And so that's one of the question that keeps me up at night as I think about it, some of our remote families that, you know, have some really unique and, you know, I guess I just have a lot of empathy towards some of the health issues that I hear about. And that's also contributes to my gratitude for our teachers being willing to put so much work into that remote platform, because I'm aware of the service we're doing so for those families. So I don't have a specific answer that this is what it will look like, but I'm really looking at it. And I didn't really anticipate the amount of movement that we'd have back to in-person. But next pandemic, I'll be a little more well-schooled in how to handle it and structure for it, I think. That's been a lesson learned for sure. I'm glad the teachers are all muted because I bet they just said some nasty words. Any other questions? In the classroom, this is what you call wait time. And you create that awkward silence until someone is willing to unmute. So we'll give it a little more wait time. Just seeing a chat message. Thanks for everything you and your staff do. Thank you for passing that along. All right, well, these teachers do have a lot of work to do. And so I can hang out a little while longer. I'm gonna let them know they can sign off. I do just wanna pass on to our community at how grateful I am. Like I am so glad that I live and work in Durango. The amount of gratitude and support that we've gotten from our school, from our parents, from our kids, there is no place that I would rather be. And so I just really, really appreciate the outpouring of support that we've had. You guys have definitely picked us up in times that have been, you know, definitely like some really hard decisions, high level decisions. And as we're going through stress, it's just felt like in each of those moments, there's been a community member that's written a really uplifting email. You pointed out something that a teacher is doing really well, and I so appreciate that. So thank you again for coming. And I'm going to go ahead and cut the recording here shortly once we're all signed off. Take care, everybody.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks, everyone.